Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Love, and today is Tuesday, August 8th, 2023. I am physically located in Jacksonville, Florida, and this conversation is being recorded via Zoom. Today, I'm joined by Janeil Morgan, who is located in Fort Lauderdale. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and Janeil, where were you born?
I was born in Jamaica, to be specific, in the parish of St. Thomas. St. Thomas, Jamaica. It's on the east side of the island. I guess for those who don't know where Kingston geographically is closer to Kingston, Jamaica.
Okay, and when did you come over to the United States?
I migrated when I was 7, so second grade.
And I don't want to make any assumptions. Are you a first generation American?
I was, I'm Jamaican born, but I have some siblings that would be first generation American.
Okay, and now tell me a little bit about your early childhood and your family. Like, what was the process when you came over to the States, and how was that?
So it was pretty much starting all over again, having to get acclimated to a new country, a new school, making new friends. So initially it was scary as a 7-year-old, leaving everything behind. So that portion of it emotionally was a little bit rough. But as far as my transition, I already had my grandmother that was here, and aunts. There were other like relatives that were here. So that made it a little bit easier for me. School was pretty good. I started off in Miami. We lived in Miami, Florida. And I integrated pretty well in elementary school. By the time I was in 5th grade, I was the mistress of ceremony. So it was a smoother transition integrating with like my peers, but emotionally it was a struggle coming here at first.
And how did you tackle those emotional issues? Were there anybody that you leaned on? How did you navigate that?
Definitely my family originally, because there's like not a language barrier, but maybe like an accent barrier when I just came. So sometimes it's a little bit intimidating if I say certain words and people are kind of like, wait, do you mean this or that? So I kind of had to lean on like my family for that support, because they understand, obviously, like the older members of my family. But eventually, once I started to make friends, I would definitely lean on my friend group, going out and playing with them more and talking with them, and kind of just assimilating to my new surrounding, and using my peers to kind of help me bridge that gap.
And are you still close with any of your childhood friends?
Not for Miami, because I have transitioned quite a few times. I've been moved to Broward County, and then like I've moved to different cities for school. So I when I used to be active on Facebook, I was in like Facebook communication with them, but I don't like have their cell phone numbers and stuff like that anymore now, unfortunately.
That's how it is. And it's funny, like, I think if somebody's watching this recording in like a decade from now, we'll see whether they actually still use Facebook, or if that even hits as hard as it does today. Okay, so I've read an article about you in the Florida Bar about how you were mentored from high school to become an attorney with the firm that you're currently with. What is the name of that firm?
Chefs and Bowen LLP.
Okay, and can you explain that high school program?
So I was a part of the Fort Lauderdale pre-law magnet program, and essentially I had to apply in from middle school. So I was at the time I was living in I think Miramar. I was living in Miramar, or maybe Hollywood. But anyways, I was not in the district of Fort Lauderdale High. So in order for me to get into pre-law magnet, I had to apply in so I could get like transferred a bus route. And essentially what the seller is that Fort Lauderdale had a pre-law magnet that allowed you to kind of like train to become a lawyer. So that was the appeal for me when I applied in middle school. The program itself is basically structured in mock trial and moot court. Those are like your elective classes, and then your extracurricular that you would do after school. So essentially you'll start in a class that will teach you the rules of evidence for mock trial. And then you can try out for the school's mock trial team after, or you can be hand selected from the professor the teacher that taught that evidence class. And he was a graduate, I think he practiced for a while, but he was an attorney. And he basically after I finished that evidence class, asked me to join the mock trial team. And then from then, we also competed in moot court. So we would prep our packets from mock trial and then separately do moot court.
And how did you find out about that magnet program?
So interestingly enough, I was in 8th grade. I had a teacher, Miss Ogden, and we had a school presentation for high schools, and Miss Ogden basically pulled me aside, and she was just like, "You're not gonna sign off with your first today. Like, the high schools are coming, and you need to pay attention. What do you want to be?" And at the time in 8th grade, I really didn't know what I wanted to be, but the only thing that I remember was my sister had once said that she wanted to be a lawyer. So I just said, I want to be a lawyer, because that was what my older sister said. And my older sister at the time, she was in criminal justice field in high school. They had kind of a program for that. So she thought she wanted to be a lawyer. She said it, never actually followed up with it, but I was just like, that was my thing. I told her that, and she was just like, Fort Lauderdale High is coming, and I want you to sit down and take notes on this school and, do what you have to do, because I don't want you to go by the wayside. Like, I see potential in you and all of these things. So I was stuck that day in the cafeteria next to her, and I had to take notes. And that's when I pretty much fell in love with Fort Lauderdale's whole idea. They had a courtroom as a classroom. That was where we had our evidence classes, in the courtroom, and I was pretty much sold. And from Ms. Ogden's recommendation, I went off to Fort Lauderdale.
And how do you spell Miss Ogden's last name?
I think it's Ogden.
Okay. And so you get to Fort Lauderdale. Did you have to commute, or did your family move closer to the school? How far was it?
I had to commute. So initially, I think, yes, I was in Miramar, and I had to get up 4 o'clock in the morning to get onto the bus, and we would get to school by 7. I then moved about 2 years into high school in Hollywood, and then it was 5 o'clock in the morning to get on the bus. So my commute was pretty rough in high school. It started from like 4 until, whatever time I would get off the bus before I started doing mock trial and moot court. Once I started doing mock trial and moot court, that was like from 5 o'clock in the morning on the bus, and then I would get home at about 7, because we had practice after school. So the commute was from the school provided bus route.
Okay. And while you were in, so we've kind of prefaced what program was and like how you got to school and everything. When was the first time you saw a lawyer who looked like you?
The first time I saw a lawyer that looked like me, it would be in my mock trial competition, and it was actually a judge that I saw. The first time I saw a lawyer, just a lawyer, I think would come way later in my legal journey. But the first Black member of the bar, I would say, would be a judge in my final competition my senior year. Actually, no, take that back. Judge Gillespie, he's a judge here in Broward County. He used to come and assist us in practicing, like polishing, before we went off to our competition. That was the first Black judge that I met. And then after the judge that was in the final competition my senior year.
And the second judge that you're mentioning, was she a Black woman, or was it a Black man?
A Black man. So they were both Black judges, Black men.
When was the first time you saw a Black female lawyer or judge?
That was a really good question. Honestly, I probably undergrad. When I was in CSA, which is a Caribbean Student Association, we had a forum that invited attorneys, they were of Caribbean descent, to speak to the pre-law students. And there was, I don't recall their names, but there's, I think, 3 of them, and they had opened a firm. They did like immigration law and stuff like that. And I remember the primary like managing partner, she's from Jamaica. And that was, I think, the first time I saw Black female attorneys.
And where did you go to undergrad?
I went to the University of Central Florida.
How was that experience?
It was a great experience. I had a lot of fun at UCF. I learned a lot at UCF. It was my first time leaving, my home base. So I would like to say like I transitioned into a woman from the University of Central Florida. There was a lot of resources there. And I got a lot of help from peers and things like that. So it was a great experience at UCF.
Okay, so in 8th grade, Miss Ogden encourages you to talk to Fort Lauderdale about their pre-law program, magnet program. And then you go to Fort Lauderdale, you have the experiences with mock trial and moot court, and then you end up at UCF.
Mhm.
Did you just kind of follow the lead that you have been following to get into law school, or what was that process trying to go from undergrad to law school?
Well, from high school to law school, and the crazy thing about it is that I went into, this idea, I want to become an attorney, right? Got to high school, did the things, right, as far as moot court and mock trial, but I never really had anyone say to me, like, this is the process to actually make it there, like, to go about it. I had a mentor, which is my mentor here at Shupton Bowen, Susan Driscoll, that she was the coach that came and volunteered with us when we did mock trial and moot court. And I reached out to her and she was supportive along my journey after undergrad. But the second judge that I spoke to, that I was telling you about at my final competition, he was the first person that actually said to me, he pulled me up after our competition, and that year I won the Best Attorney Award for Broward County. And he called me up after the trial to his bench, and he said to me, "You're really talented, you're special, and I think you need to continue this and go to law school." And that was the first time the idea of law school ever came about. Like, I did not see or think of anything past my mock trial and moot court program in high school. But when he said that, I was just like, oh, there's something else. So that's pretty much where I was just like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out what that journey is gonna look like after. From undergrad, I dabbled into some legal studies classes to kind of just expose myself. I was a political science major. But I went into some legal studies classes just to kind of get my feet wet with a little bit more of an understanding of the whole process. And then once I understood a little bit more about it, I don't think as thoroughly as I didn't research as much as I should have, but I did reach out to my mentor Suzanne, and then other attorneys that I met after the fact to assist me during that period of undergrad and then getting to law school.
Okay, and so what was the LSAT process like? And for anyone listening, LSAT stands for the Law School Admissions Test. What was studying for that like?
It was horrible. LSAT was bad. I did not know what I was getting myself into, like I said, and that's a part of my whole, I should have done more research than I did. I was just really thinking end goal and not all the intricacies in between. So when I took the LSAT for the first time, I did not study for the LSAT. I just thought it was like anything else that I could just go and, I'm gonna make it happen. Same type of deal with what I did with the SATs and, things of that nature. Just being ignorant to the beast of what, law school is and the admission process. And that really, the LSAT journey was a struggle for me. And I had to readjust myself to kind of, make it through that journey. I really, really wish that, and through that, I actually created a YouTube page and Instagram. I don't actively engage with them anymore right now, but to kind of like lend help to other people along the journey, because there were so many things that I was doing wrong and I didn't understand during that process, that I was just like, if people know upfront the beast of the LSAT, maybe they'll do a lot better than, I'm currently doing now, because I had to work and then take the LSAT after undergrad. So it was rough.
Okay, and so did you kind of just mentioned it, but did you take a gap year?
I did, a few gap years. So initially, I did not plan to start law school traditionally right after undergrad. I planned to take a year off because I was just burned out from undergrad and my involvement. But then it turned into multiple years. So I started working right after, and then I had an issue that basically, froze my profile, my account with LSAT. So in order to resolve all of that, that was an entire year that lapsed. And then the third year is pretty much when I got all my ducks in a row and was actually successful with getting all my prerequisites together that apply.
And where did you start law school?
I started law school at the Florida A&M University College of Law in Orlando.
And how was that experience?
It was a great experience. The Florida A&M staff, they're super helpful, always there to assist. I don't think like I've had, you know, a lot of my peers there. There wasn't a need that went, you know, unmet if you reached out to, you know, the dean or administration. And then that's a historically Black college. So there was a lot of support to help students to excel that I wasn't exposed to before coming from a PWI institution. So it was a great experience to just feel like, you know, you're amongst a lot of your peers that can also understand not just your academic journey, but just life's journey and some of the other things that we face. That was a really nurturing and positive environment to start my law school career.
Okay, and so at the end of your first year, every student has the opportunity to apply to transfer. It's usually after the first year, but you also have the opportunity going into your spring semester of your second year. And so did you take that opportunity to transfer? And if so, why?
Yes, I did. After my spring semester, so I started UF law, my 2L year, my fall 2L year. My decision to transfer from Florida A&M was primarily because of resources and certain opportunities that I was looking to have. There was a little bit of limitation on that from programs that we had at Florida A&M. In which the college is still evolving and, you know, it's fairly young. So for example, at UF, I participated in the PD's clinic, and I had the opportunity to be on trial team when I was there to do a lot of the things that at the time when I was at Florida A&M as a 1L, we did not have those programs. So there was not a trial team there. The only clinic I think was a mediation clinic at the time. They were still building on certain things. So I kind of had to try to seize the moment and get the experience that I want within that limited 3 years before I left. So I decided to transfer to University of Florida.
And what is a clinic?
A clinic is basically a program in law school that allows students the opportunity to get firsthand practical experience as law students under the provision of a barred attorney. So for the clinic that I participated in, I worked at the PD's office in Gainesville, and I was under the supervision of public defenders that worked in that office.
And PD is public defender, correct? Okay, and so we've kind of talked about this, but I'm about to be a little bit more explicit. You've talked about multiple obstacles that you've overcome from your childhood up into becoming an attorney. And so your first obstacles were with emotional issues with coming from Jamaica to the States. The second kind of obstacle was trying to understand what high school you wanted to go to and why, and Miss Ogden helped you with that, whereas your family and friends helped you with the first obstacle. And then you talked about more obstacles in your process between undergrad and beginning law school. What other obstacles that you haven't covered? What kind of obstacles were in your way in becoming an attorney, and how did you overcome them?
One financial obstacle. So I worked, before I came to, law school. Law school is a very expensive investment. And I think not having that, firsthand experience or someone to talk to you about that, you kind of get thrown into it. And then as you progress throughout the process, you're just like, this is costly. It costs a lot to, become an attorney. So for me, I worked before I started. I tried to save as much as I could, but that was still a challenge throughout law school. So I applied for scholarships, and I also worked once I could after 2L. I worked the entire time up until the bar. I was working during bar prep, just because finances, I had to obviously finance myself. So that was a big challenge that I was able to overcome. And outside of the financial portion of it, I think just resource, which for me, I was grateful enough, I'm thankful enough that I had the opportunity to kind of network and get my foot into spaces where I could like rely on other people to help me along the way. But having people that have walked that journey before, that's able to actually come and kind of help you step by step along the way, was initially an obstacle for me, but thankfully I was able to overcome that eventually. And those are the two things I could think of off the top of my head as obstacles right now.
Okay. And so can you kind of describe your experience at UF? What was it like? What did you like? What did you not like?
So, first of all, I liked for sure the opportunities, the resources that was provided at UF. You know, there's so many different ways that you can get involved and gain practical experience. The university has a lot of that to provide for students, and the opportunity is there. I have, you know, even as a transfer student, was able to meet faculty members that were supportive, and outside of just, you know, the academics of things, kind of lend advice and kind of support me along the way. Those were definitely plus. And then students too, that, you know, I was able to create bonds and relationships with through my engagement in extracurricular activities. So that was really a positive, even though I was, you know, the COVID class that kind of had to transition between being remote and in person. So that was a plus for me for sure. On the flip side, I guess maybe being in an environment, my first year, coming from a HBCU law school where, you know, everyone around me looks like me. A lot might have similar backgrounds, similar stories. Now transitioning into a PWI law school, it's reduced by a lot. You know, I've been in classes where I am the only Black student that's in a class. So the environment is definitely a little bit different at the University of Florida. But, you know, organizations like LALSA and other organizations that you'll connect with, similar peers, similarly situated peers, allow for the opportunity for you to feel at home. So that was a little bit of a different, a change, I guess, from my first year of law school.
If you had to kind of sum up your journey to becoming a lawyer, what would that summation look like?
I had a interview today actually with a summer associate that she kind of said, like, 'cause I was telling her my story with the firm, and she was basically saying, like, you know, you started networking at an early age, you know, in high school. And I was telling her, I was just like, actually, I mean, now that we say it like that, we can define it as such, that I started networking in high school. But really, that was never my intent. I didn't even really know what networking was as a high school student. I feel like my entire existence as being a lawyer is nothing but divine intervention. Because a lot of the things that led me to where I am right now, I can't say I chose it for myself. I think like things just kind of presented, the opportunities came before me. And thankfully, God gave me the ability to like execute on those opportunities when they came. I think the hardest journey part for me was obviously law school is hard. The LSAT is hard, but everybody had to, go through those things. So taking that out of the equation from everyone else, my path was pretty set for me to kind of like go through. Like I said before, Miss Ogden is the one that kind of put Fort Lauderdale in my viewpoint. When I even went on mock trial, I didn't try out. My teacher there, Mr. Katz, he's the one that basically asked me to join the team. I never even tried out then. And then from then, I literally was just like, I need help. Like a lawyer, the first lawyer I knew was Suzanne Driscoll that, gave me a card and said, you can reach out. And I did. And, I just I feel like things were just in place and I just followed the course of my life. So I honestly can say that my journey was more of divine intervention, but still does not take away from the fact that it was extremely difficult without the resources to navigate this space. And the thing that I think maybe allowed me to do it is that my hunger of wanting to actually be, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I know I'm very goal oriented. So because I kind of set that in motion, I was just like, I'm going to take the necessary steps and figure out how to make it happen, however I could. But yeah, I would definitely summarize my journey as a divine calling, I guess.
Okay, and so imagine a freshman in undergrad at a university anywhere in the world, and she has never seen an attorney who looked like her, specifically the same gender expression, identity, and same race. What would you say to that student if she wanted to become an attorney? What advice would you give her?
Make contact, reach out, and just be honest, say that. Because I think and I wish that when I was in undergrad, I went up to the attorneys and just kind of said, I want to be a lawyer as well. Like I see where you are, and that's kind of where I want to be, but I didn't really express more past that, right? And I think the big part about it, and people are willing to help those who kind of know what they need help in. I had to meet my mentor, Professor Barry Blocker. When I asked him to be my mentor, like after law school, he asked like, what is this relationship gonna look like? What do you want it to look like? What are you looking for mentorship? And I think just having in mind what you want to do, it doesn't have to be concrete, but just expressing that to that person and just say, you are where I want to be, and I just need help and guidance along the way of how to get there. Because I think that's the most difficult part with navigating this space as a Black female, is the process. If we understood the process better, how to take the LSAT, like what is to come, then you can prepare yourself to like go through everything else. But pretty much just approaching that person and just asking, how did you get here? And can you help me to at least start my journey on, what I should do? How do I move from undergrad to law school? I think that's the first step, and having them kind of help with that transition from where do I move from an undergrad student to getting into law school.
And is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you would like to share to anyone who's listening to this?
Yes. Mentorship. You can obviously get the opportunity to get assigned a mentor through different programs and things of that nature, but also just initiating that too for yourself. For me, I had the blessing of having Suzanne, kind of planted in our high school program from an early age, and she extended the offer to say, reach out if you need anything, and I took that offer. But along my journey, I've met mentors from like every different walk of life that provided different things to me that helped me along the way. And I think that mentorship should always be like a continuous thing, because essentially you don't know what you don't know. And you need people who know things that are gonna tell you like, there's this out there, there's that out there, and other things to explore. So it's always important to, try to find people that know more than you and just let them know, like, I'm willing to like soak up this information to help me to navigate, because we go in blind as Black law students, not knowing how to navigate the space, not knowing, that there's things such as journals and trial team and moot court and all the things. You just think the goal is to make it to law school. And then when you get there, everything is gonna be great, but you need people to tell you that there's other ways to be great in law school, and then how to navigate to, get different opportunities. So mentorship and asking those questions of the process is very, very important. And even now, I'm under a year in my career, but having a mentor within your practice is, I can't even express how important and like, it's really important to have. So for me, that person is Sydney Calloway at my firm. And he's a Black equity partner at my firm. The support that I get from him as far as going out in the community, being involved in a bar association, and then just learning and navigating my practice, and just the experiences of being, a Black attorney, but just being an attorney in general has been just absolutely amazing and enriching. So I think like having people ahead of you that could kind of be a foreshadowing of what's to come for you or the possible route makes things a lot easier than trying to just navigate everything by yourself, because everything is so brand new. It's like, so yeah, that's the extra thing that I would add, is definitely just finding people to help you along the way that know more than you, because that's how you're gonna decide like where I could go, what's the limit to how far, I could go. Because not until I saw people like Stephen Calloway and like others, and I'm just like, okay, there's more, you can get more, you can be. So yeah, that would be it.
Okay, well, I don't think I have any more questions, but if I do, I'll definitely reach out to you. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Have a good one.
Bye.